I hope I don't do those sentences.
Could you do a show like sneak previews, or could a show be done like that on commercial television? Would it be possible, do you think?
There would probably be some changes. Let's say we were on one of the 3 major networks. We would probably have a little more trouble getting some of our specialty shows on the air. For example, the buried treasure format, which we use every once in a while. 6 films you've never heard of, but we think that they've been unjustly overlooked.
I'm thinking in terms
Foreign films would be harder to review on commercial television. Public television gives us a lot of freedom. On the other hand, there's nothing wrong with the format. It's an extremely popular format, and I suppose it might be suitable to commercial television.
But in terms of like industry pressure, because I'm sure there's a lot of, in the commercial television, there's probably a lot more competition, and thus, pressure to say, well, don't pan this film.
No, I think where we would get the competition would be, frankly, just in sheer entertainment value, that tremendous need to be entertaining. I think if we were on commercial television, I think we would have to deal at some point with, well, can't you guys disagree more? Or when you disagree, won't you really have it out? Can we give you mallets?
Or they say,
how about,
more
you both
TNA.
attack Chris Christopherson's new film, and then Chris comes on, and you tell him to his face what a loss he is. And then let's see what he says,
But I would get the feeling they would say, have more titillating clips, make sure all your clips are the car chase scenes, for instance.
Yes, all those things could happen. But I have a feeling that if we were on commercial television, that what we would attempt to produce or at least achieve is a discussion of film. That we would be talking substance, and hopefully that would be appealing to the audience, and I think that's the way we would.
What we try to do now, with some of the films, we have no control over what scenes we show you. The studio says, here are 3 scenes from the film. That's it. What we try to do, and we've been more and more successful with doing this as the show has become established, is to make our own scenes. To say, in terms of the way, let's say I'm reviewing a given film and Gene's going to be the person responding to my review. So I'll talk to the producer and I will say, well, in terms of the points I want to make, these are the 2 scenes I would really like to get. And then the production staff, and the fact that I was very curious about, I wanted to see Las Vegas. Never been here before.
You won't be here too long to see much of it, though.
Well, I think walking down Glitter Gulch gives you the idea pretty quickly.
We didn't get into children's films at all in our discussion, and I guess Walt Disney is having a lot of problems. Do you feel they're going to pull out of that?
The Disney Studios has announced their production schedule for 1982, and it's mostly movies that are rated PG, parental guidance, which is to say they're a little bit more daring, a little bit more action and excitement than the G-rated picture. And I think that's a sign of the times. I believe that the so-called G-rated picture is a thing of the past. Kids these days have been to see Raiders of the Lost Ark, they've been to see Superman 2, they don't want to see some movie about a cute little raccoon anymore.
And yet
it doesn't make it with them.
At the same time, I think that Disney cannot solve its problems by simply making PG films. I think that there is something in the Disney spirit, or has been, I should say, in the past, that they didn't want to offend. And in not wanting to offend, you never knew what they stood for. What did they want to do? See, I don't think when Walt Disney made his classic animated cartoon features, which were quite adventurous at the time if you think about it, he was thinking about, I want to appeal to everyone or be inoffensive. He had something he wanted to show. Now there's a new production chief at Disney, Tom Wilhite. He's 28 years old. This is his chance to roll the dice, and let's see what he comes up with. But I think he's going to have to decide, what does he want to do? What do each of these filmmakers want to do aggressively with their movies, and forget all of the business about being inoffensive? So many times with Disney pictures, they're set in towns that don't exist, the live-action material, featuring people who don't exist.
You know right away, what urban kid is going to believe it when he goes to a movie and it starts out with a scene, it's the morning in a small town USA, and then here comes the milkman. There aren't any milkmen anymore. Every kid knows that. And then they go down to the town square, and there's the friendly old cop. He knows everybody by name. This America was a great place, and maybe we'd be better off if we had it back again. But it doesn't make it at the movies anymore.
But what about a film like The Fox and the Hound that both of you were favorable?
Yes.
That was an example of Disney trying, I think, to relate and to be creative and to let a new generation of animators live.
But a film like that is something that I think is wholesome and yet says something in a colorful way.
I happen to think that that was a very smart decision. What they did there in The Fox and the Hound is make one like the old days. I'm talking about the live-action films which I think have been appalling from that studio.
Midnight Madness. It's really hard.
Like the Don Knotts films and those type of...
well, with the exception of on the Don Knotts thing, he and Tim Conway have made a couple of good ones together. I want to say things like Freaky Friday, but Freaky Friday wasn't all bad because it had Jodie Foster in it. There are a whole bunch of them. The $1 Million Duck.
North Avenue Irregulars.
Yes, there we go.
But what about the parents out there who, with 5 to 8-year-old kids,
There
don't you
are
think
other films for them to see. The Black Stallion is a classic example. There are other Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I felt that the Black Stallion did not do as well as it should have, probably because of the G rating. I think, I may be wrong, but I think a lot of kids, when they see a G rating, they think, oh, it's going to be for kids. And the last thing a kid wants to see is a movie that's for kids. They want to think that they're going to be getting some kind of a window to some exciting universe of... When I was a kid and went to the movies, I wanted to know what other countries looked like, what other kinds of people behaved like, what grown-ups did, what, grown-ups, for example, like cowboys.
But do you think you were typical of
pirates.
the normal kid?
Yeah, I was looking for role models. You'd get out of a Western on Saturday afternoon, and you'd be cowboys all the way home, hiding behind every bush. This kind of exciting escapism is one of the reasons kids go to the movies.
Yeah,
to try on different kinds of fantasy models.
One of the depressing facts, of course, about the movie business is now, today, after they go to the movies, kids probably, considering the kinds of films that are being made, they go home and play homicidal maniac. I mean, there are many films that have to do with violence. I think this is much more of a legitimate concern for parents. Rather than seeking inoffensive material, is avoiding very offensive material. I think that parents have a great deal of reason to be concerned about films. I think that's one of the values of sneak previews. Could be that parents can get a quick reading of the kinds of films. Frequently, children will see, watch television, of course, a lot. They'll see intensely advertised films and say, I want to go see Schizoid. I want to see that one Maniac. That's weird. Well, what we're telling them is it's more than weird. It's sick.
I want Gene to tell you a story. There was a movie called I Spit on Your Grave, which I feel is one of the most disgusting and reprehensible films that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know anything worse than it myself. And the story
Gene stood outside the theater and talked to some people who were going in with their children. Why don't you?
Yeah, well, what happened was, this was about a year and a half ago. And I did it in 2 places, this questioning the audience. I saw the film, I was shocked, and what shocked me, it's about a woman that's raped 3 times and then gets her revenge, but most of it is weighted toward the rape. And it's quite graphic and disgusting. I was sitting in the dark theater, a neighborhood theater, working class neighborhood in Chicago, and in front of me was parents with their 2 young girls, 4 and 8, and I checked all the ages. This is not my estimate, because I interviewed them. Across the aisle, another couple of parents with boys 8 and 10. And I asked them, why'd you do it? Well, the answers turned out to be a combination of didn't have money for a babysitter or didn't care to get one, to they like it. I asked the kids didn't like it. They were, the one little girl, the 4-year-old, got up and climbed onto her mom. I don't know if she was traumatized by the film or not. It appeared to me to be the case. Later, I went downtown in Chicago, and I saw people, and they said, well, we were curious about it. I wanted to see what it was about. I described it. These are people before that. I also talked to some before they walked in. And I said, well, here's what it's about. A woman gets raped 3 times, then she takes a propeller and cuts the guy apart. Yeah, I'd like to see that. I mean, what can you do?
Incredible, yeah, incredible. I'm going to switch gears on you real quick about women. Do you feel that you can get a women's viewpoint? Can you review for a woman as much as a man?
My problem with that question is, I think that implies what women are, that they are wholly different from men, and I don't believe that they are. We used to get this question with black films. How can you, as white guys, review films for blacks? Indeed, I would ask, how can I review a film about a raccoon if I'm not a raccoon? I mean, I'm giving my review.
Right.
The moment that the critic begins to say, how can I put this so that so-and-so will understand it, or so that this group will have it in their terms, or that I will address another group, the critic is lost. Sometimes people say, well, who do you write for? And the only good answer to that question is for myself, and to a degree for my editor. And that's it.
So it's not really a valid
question. The moment you start
question.
thinking, I want to rewrite this sentence so that it'll be sure to communicate to what I think my readers can identify with, then I might as well turn in my card in the critics union if they're where critics should.
It is tough enough knowing or recognizing what you think while you're watching it. What do you really think? Recognizing it and then writing it or speaking it. That's tough enough without getting into the game of women over 35 are going to love this picture. When you say a sentence like that or write it, I think you offend all the women over 35. How dare he know what I'm going to like? All the women under 35. What do you mean? I won't like that?
And all the men.
And everybody else. I mean, I think you really can get trapped.
Yeah. When you see a film, and because you're reviewing it most of the time, do you fail to enjoy it? Is your mind so much on what you're going to be reviewing?
No. Sometimes, if it's a bad enough film, the fact that I'm reviewing it will be the only thing about it that I will enjoy. I will be sitting there collecting dumb lines,
Right.
impossible situations, idiotic plot twists. If it's a good film, I find that I can be quite caught up in it. I have what I might call an out-of-the-body experience, occasionally, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And I don't want to sound like a columnist for the National Enquirer, but occasionally, well, for example, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, when that boulder was rolling down on poor Harrison Ford, I was not sitting there thinking about the special effects that were involved. I was sitting there thinking, he's going to be crushed. And that sort of experience is a lot of fun.
I think that's refreshing that a movie critic has been doing it for that long a time can see it through that angle, the kid's viewpoint of just titillation.
That's an exceptional film that can do that. I think it is exceptional, and he said it only happens a few times a year. The thing that I want to say is there's an undercurrent to the question that you asked about is it too much work? And that is, do you ever go and just enjoy them? I think that's what you're really asking, and a lot of people wonder that. And I answered that I always go to enjoy them. I think I like the good ones more than the average person, because it is a richer experience for me. I think we, as Roger just mentioned, also like or enjoy being there, the bad ones, more than the other person. Remember, we're not out the money. Our newspapers will pay for us. We are going to get the money back, and we are getting a chance to get back at the movie.
I enjoy the whole movie-going experience. I like the M&Ms. I like the Milk Duds. I like the Sugar Babies. I like the Junior Mints. I don't like any Kraft popcorn topping on my popcorn. I just eat it plain. I know exactly where to sit. You sit twice as far back from the screen as the screen is wide.
You better say that again, because people
Twice as far back from the screen as the screen is wide, on the side of the theater, away from the door where most people come in.
That's
so
for
there's
sure.
Less chance of anybody being in front of you. I like to sit on the aisle so I can look at an angle, there's nobody right in front of me. I hope the manager isn't listening. I like to put my feet up on the seat in front of me. I enjoy the fact that I'm not all cramped in as I am at legitimate theater. I enjoy the audience response. I like to hear people laugh and cry. If they're insulted by the film, I like to hear them talk back at it. One guy said at a kung fu movie not long ago, if he pulls out that spear, he was impaled, if he pulls out that spear and comes back, I'm leaving. Well, the guy pulled out the spear and the guy behind me left. I enjoy that kind of experience.
I enjoy all those things, and let me add a couple more. I once, as an experiment, took the job of an usher for a day for a story I was going to write. And I expected to sort of enjoy the authority position of finally being able to tell people, no talking.
Lady, shut that baby
shine the flashlight on people, all that kind of thing. That's what I expected, wear a uniform.
You probably spent the whole time in the back row looking for perverts, right?
Yeah. Wearing a uniform, that was going to be a big deal. And it was not such a big deal. I walked down the aisle, told everyone to be quiet. I then walked back up the aisle. Now, this was a downtown theater in Chicago, and it was showing the Cosby Poitier movie, Let's Do It Again, comedy. And I walked back up, and I was seeing the audience now from a different point of view, and if you really love movies, I suggest you try this. Walk back up the aisle, out. Look at the light coming off the screen, hitting the audience. And see who the audience is. This is a downtown theater. It was winter. Some people were warmly dressed. Some people were making out. Some people were asleep. Some people had bags of food. Some people had their feet up. Some people were laughing. Some people were bored. It was a real mixture, a democratic experience. It was very exciting. That's what the movies are. You mentioned the theater. I'm glad I'm doing the movie beat, because I think that is, I call it the national dream beat. I like that we are able to, you don't have to be anybody to watch them. You don't have to be uptight and wondering how you're dressed or how you're reacting. I love all of that.
You touched on a very interesting issue. A lot of times, nationally syndicated political columnists will go to a movie once a year. like The Godfather, or The French Connection, or The Exorcist, and then write their trend piece. You know, this movie shows that the American psyche has made a 40-degree turn to the right, or to the left, or something. I believe that if you really monitor American movies, and monitor the audiences, you can find out what kind of a mood we are in from year to year and from decade to decade.
Yeah,
and it's the national dream beat. That's a very good line.
I've got time about for one more question, and it's this. Walter Cronkite's been asked a lot of times to become a politician because he knows so much about it. Would you ever be interested in producing a film, being that you know so much about them?
We don't. I don't know so much about producing a film because I've never produced a film or directed a film.
You wrote...
Would you have that
I've
aspiration?
written some screenplays. I think it would be interesting.
To produce? You know, you're the first person ever asked...
Not to produce, to direct.
No.
But maybe to produce as well. It might be interesting.
I think it would be... I like the suggestion of produce because
Instead of direct.
Yes, because that implies...
then you could put
overall-
together the package.
Yeah.
Right.
You could say, I need Martin Scorsese.
Right.
I need Sissy Spacek. I need Robert De Niro. I've got to have a screenplay by William Whitliff, who wrote The Black Stallion. You could
Just hypothetically, what would be the perfect film if you could produce
that
it?
one that I just mentioned.
Really?
Yes, and it would be about living on the North Side of Chicago in 1974. Robert De Niro as the typical Chicagoan.
I would certainly have De Niro in my first movie as a producer. I would probably... Is this going to be a promo for... I'll start, you can finish.